everyone. This is Riti Raj. Currently, I'm Additional SP Admin Suryapet. Last time I talked to you guys on Officers on Duty was when I told you about my preparation days and about my training. Today, I'll tell you about what it actually looks like to be an officer on the field. So, let me begin with my district practical training. So, once you enter the services, like in 2018, I was selected, 2019, the training began. And after a year of training, we are sent onto the field to have the practical training. So in the month of December, I joined my cadre, which is Telangana, and my district practical training happened in the district of Cyberabad. Now in the DPT, what happens is that it's a 6-month program. For 3 months, we remain in the headquarter, which is the Cyberabad headquarter. And for another 3 months, we are given the charge, independent charge of a police station. Because as you all know, being an SP, you handle a district. So you wouldn't really understand how things go on in a district unless you know how one unit works. So that's why, to give us that exposure, we are told to manage one police station so that later we understand how to manage the entire district. So for me, that police station was Shadnagar police station. Now, the reason our DPT for my entire batch was very unique was because that's when Corona had hit. So apart from doing the regular law and order duties, apart from managing the police station, the cases and dealing with the people, the regular petitioners, we also had to deal with the onslaught of Corona. So the imposition of the lockdown and handling the migrants and everything. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about it in detail. So if we talk about the regular duties, so once you handle a police station, you basically become the SHO, the station house officer. Now, when you become that, you are supposed to first understand who are the different people who are working in your station, what is your manpower, what are the different duties allocated, and what are the sudden things which generally come up. For example, some bandobast will come up, there might be certain dignitary visiting, so you have to send men for that. So you understand what are the various possible duties. Then you see what are the men that you have at your disposal, and accordingly you understand how to manage your manpower and how to get everything done. So that was basically happening. And then when you are sitting as an SHO, the local people, they come directly with the petitions, and everybody who comes, they don't really want to register an FIR in that moment. They basically want you to listen to, and they want that satisfaction that okay, there is somebody who's listening to us. So generally I would deal with a lot of domestic violence issues, because as Corona started, people started living, they actually started spending a lot of time together, and because they were not allowed to go out, and a lot of drinking problem also started increasing, and all this led to increase in domestic violence cases. So we had to deal with a lot of petitioners like that. And sometimes, there'll be cases where you don't really understand what you can do, because there'll be dead-end cases. For example, there was this case of a missing girl. So she had basically, the case was that of an elopement. And the reason we could not get any trace of her was because both she and the guy she had eloped with, they had switched off their phones. And in today's time, we rely on technology a lot for investigation. So because they had switched off their phones, they did not contact any of their family members for almost over a month. No family member contact, no friends contact. It became quite difficult to trace them. However, within 25 days, we were able to finally trace them from another state. And after that also, sometimes generally it is seen that once the person is caught, once the person is traced, the work is over. It does not always happen like that. So once when this person, this girl was brought, and the guy she had eloped with, when they were brought to the station, even then the situation was such that they were threatening to commit suicide, or a lot of emotional drama. So again, it took us almost 2 to 3 hours of counseling to actually make them understand what the issue is and what the problem is, what are the legal issues which can arise if they carry forward, because they were both minors. So there is a lot of counseling also involved when you are in the police department. Similarly, when domestic violence issues come, generally the women, it's a very unfortunate story, but yes, the women are financially dependent on their husbands, on their in-laws, and they don't have self-reliance. So even though they might be facing abuse, all that they tell us is कि madam, आप इनको समझा दो, इनको बता दो कि दोबारा ऐसा नहीं करें, बट हम इनसे अलग नहीं होना चाहते. And generally, if you file FIRs in all those cases, then the problem is कि the lady gets isolated from her in-laws as well, and even her own parents, they will not take her into their homes. So they get into a very destitute kind of situation. So in those cases, we had to use a lot of discretion, you know, if we can use counseling, if we can use mediation. So Telangana fortunately has a wonderful system of Bharosa centers and she cells. So what happens here is that for all these family disputes, because according to the court guidelines, we have a time period where we can, you know, do preliminary inquiry, where we can send these family issues for counseling, and only after that we have to register an FIR. So in Telangana, this is institutionalized in the form of Bharosa centers. So we would send a lot of these cases there also. So all I can say is ki in that experience, what I learned was ki okay, when we were at training at NPA, they taught us the rules and regulations, they taught us how to handle situations, but dealing with people and, you know, dealing with human emotions, that is a very different thing. And you should not expect yourself to excel at it from day one. That is something you learn slowly by experience. For example, the first 498A case that I dealt with, I was a little enraged ki how can the man do this to a woman, and she is suffering so much, there's so much problem. As the days went by, as we investigated more, we realized ki it is not, things are not exactly as they seem. So it's not, and that is the reason why at NPA they make us so mentally strong that you don't get very emotional about the cases. Because when you see a complaint, when you see a petition, it will have all the ingredients of a very grievous offense, very heinous offense. But when you actually do the investigation, it might not turn out to be like that. So this was happening, and then Corona had happened. So Corona almost, put a full stop to our regular law and order training. So when Corona came, we had to enforce the lockdowns. And when that was happening, I got a glimpse of, the other kinds of livelihoods which happen in the society. Like from 5 o'clock in the morning, we would be on the streets to ensure lockdown, which was being followed from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Now, when we would be on the roads, we would see ki, okay, at 4:30 only, all these vegetable vendors, milk vendors, they would start their day, and how the different livelihoods were being affected because of Corona, because of lockdown, because they had a very short period of time in which they could continue their livelihoods. And then we had to deal with a lot of migrant issues. So the area I was working in, Shadnagar, it was an industrial area. So there were a lot of labor unions, migrant laborers, who the moment they got to know about lockdown, they just wanted to go out. उनको सिर्फ इतना पता था कि अब उनके लिए घर जाना मुश्किल होगा, तो किसी भी तरह से उनको घर जाना है. So you might have also seen कि काफ़ी cases हुए थे where migrants were traveling on foot for very long distances, just trying to reach their homes. Now the problem with us was कि we weren't allowed to let these migrants travel because the infection rate was spiraling. So we had to put them up in centers. So that's when your local jugaad comes in. So we, along with the revenue people, we had to find out places, so like function halls where we can keep all those people, because you cannot possibly keep 500-600 people for a period of 5-6 days at just any place. You have to arrange for the sanitation, you have to arrange for their food, and you can't expect them to provide for themselves because they are laborers, they don't have any money on them. So fortunately in Telangana, the government was providing for it. They were providing the PDS rices also, and we had a lot of volunteers coming up. So one thing that I had done was कि I knew that there were a lot of my college batchmates who wanted to donate for this cause, who wanted to help these migrants. So through them, I was able to arrange a sum of around 80,000-85,000, and we were able to provide for around 10 to 15 people for a period of 1 month. We were able to give them groceries for 1 month. So I did this, I tried to popularize it, and then slowly a lot of more volunteers started coming up. So what I realized was, it's not like people don't want to help. It's just that they sometimes don't know and sometimes they're hesitant. So you have to set an example, and then using that example, you encourage the others. So this is what I did. And then it'll be difficult to believe for everyone, but a lot of volunteers came in, and we had almost like none of the migrants and none of the people who were losing out their livelihoods were going hungry, because fortunately, because of the NGOs there and because of the volunteers, we were able to arrange proper food supplies for almost a period of 2 to 3 months for all the people in Shadnagar. So, and definitely the government help was already on its way, so that helped a lot. Now after this DPT training, like for our batch, it ended in the month of May. After this, we had our phase 2 training at NPA, which was mostly about sharing the experiences which we gained in our district practical training, because different states have different situations and different officers deal with them differently, and we just learn from the best practices. So that was phase 2. After phase 2, we had our POP, passing out parade, and generally just after the passing out parade, the postings come for every state. But for Telangana and Andhra, our first postings is always in Greyhounds. Now Greyhounds is an anti-Naxal force which was started in undivided Andhra, and even after the division, it is being maintained in Andhra Pradesh as well as Telangana. Now Greyhounds, if you might remember, I had told you guys that the training at NPA was extremely difficult. Now training at Greyhounds, you can just say that it's 10x of the training at NPA. It is that difficult because it's almost like a commando training, because these people are trained to fight in jungles. It's proper guerrilla warfare. So we had to do a 1 month training with them in the academy so that we get to know exactly how physically rigorous it is, and then for another month and a half we were sent on operations. So operations means because Telangana, undivided Andhra, was facing a lot of Naxal issue. So to deal with them, basically Greyhounds was initiated. Now sending on operation means there are a lot of movements which happen of the people who are involved in Naxalism. So we are supposed to go to those areas, see if there are any changes, developments. Now in those operations, we had to stay in the jungle for almost 4 days with 20 kg luggage, and you keep moving around. And for food, we would just have curd rice, because that is the only thing which stays. So they would give us very, like, it was almost like ekdam aise gaada sa curd rice, and you just keep mixing water. So you keep mixing water for breakfast also, lunch also, dinner also. So, and when we used to go to the jungle, we would carry our drinking water. Now at max, a person can carry 6 to 7 liters. Beyond that, it's not possible because you have your other gear also. So after that, we used to be reliant on the nalas. So nalas here means actual streams of rivers or maybe some rivulets. Now sometimes we had to take detours of 5 to 6 kilometers just to find water, because those 7 liters are sufficient only for 2 days. After that, you need it again. So that was quite exhausting. This entire Greyhounds training, it basically made us feel that there are physical limits only when you think of them. Every limit is only mental, because there were operations where we had to walk for 14 hours, and in entire 14 hours we took rest for 5 minutes. I'm not exaggerating, I'm telling you very frankly. And there were times when in those 14 hours where we would, your mind stops processing things, your mind stops analyzing things, and you're just moving one foot after the other, one foot after the other. So, but once you survive all of that, you realize, it's all in your head. Because if somebody had told me that you have to walk for 14 hours, I would say a straight no. It's not possible, I won't do it, I'll get exhausted. But it's just about carrying on. You just, whatever difficulties you face in life, all you have to do is keep carrying on. It will pass. You have to believe in that. The situation is not going to be there forever. So that was something we learned from Greyhounds. And again, after Greyhounds ended, we were given attachments to different districts to learn exactly what our future roles are going to be. So I was attached to the Commissioner of Karimnagar. Now, once I was attached there, I started understanding what it means to be on the field, because then my training had ended completely. So there I got a lot of opportunities for investigation in different kinds of cases, murder cases, rape cases, POCSO cases. And there you understand, how once the offense has happened, what are the legalities that you have to follow, what are the procedures you have to follow. If there's a murder, then the hospitals have to be contacted, PME has to be done, the statements have to be drawn of the witnesses in case there are any, or circumstantial witnesses. What are the kinds of evidences you gather, how do you gather them? So while you're doing all this, the training from NPA helps, because that is what they teach you, how to do the investigation properly. So that was there in Karimnagar, and then I was posted to Suryapet. So Suryapet, my current post is that of an additional SP admin. So generally when you think of police, you will think of all the police stations, and exactly, police stations are a very important part of policing. However, the police is also a department. So like any other department, it has its administrative issues, and the matters, the service matters are there, and the entire organization happens from the district. So the work of an additional SP admin is to manage the DPO, which is the district police office, the district police headquarters. So in a DPO, you will have a lot of sections. Different sections will deal with different things. For example, one section deals with the increments in the pay of all the men, the TA, DA particulars. The budget section is there, which manages how much funds we are getting and how those funds are to be allocated for all the different departments. There is a separate section which deals with leaves, medical reimbursements of the men. So taking care of the men, basically. That is what happens in a DPO. Then you have other sections, for example, DCRB, that's the District Crime Record Bureau. So there a lot of reports are maintained on a daily basis. What are the cases filed in all the police stations, what are the enforcement works being done, how are the DD checkings being done, the drunken driving cases, the challan cases, what is the realization, and what are the gambling cases, what are the NDPS cases. So category wise, according to law wise. So a lot of records are maintained in DCRB. Then you have the IT cell section. So as the policing is also getting very technology oriented, IT cell comes to play a very important role, because they give us the analysis. Okay, this is the thing happening. For example, in Telangana we use something called tech datum. So tech datum, what it does is, once you keep feeding all the FIRs, it will accumulate all of that information and it will process it. It will tell you ki, on weekends in a particular area, more drunk driving cases are happening. At nights or in afternoons in particular areas, more robberies are happening or more dacoities are happening. So this is the analysis which is done. So those applications are there and the IT cell people look after it. Apart from that, we have other sections called the MTO. So the policing, the police department, every police station, they need vehicles for doing the patrolling, for doing the regular work. So all those vehicles, they have a separate department. Then there is the Armed Reserve Department. So all the PSOs that you see, all the escort vehicles that you see, all of those people, they come from the Armed Reserve. So these are all the different sections which an admin has to deal with, the additional SP admin. Now my first posting was supposed to be that of an ASP. After ASP, I got additional SP admin. Now after this, it will be the SP of a district. So generally, once we get eligible for SPship, first we are posted as, generally DCPs and commissionerates, because you get to handle a big area, you get to gain a lot of experience, because only after that you will be posted as an SP, because SP means you are the whole and soul of the district. You have to manage everything that goes on. So generally after at least 5 to 6 months or a year of DCP, you have the SP post, but you're not SP of a district. So after you do that, then you are given the post of an SP. Now generally sometimes different ranks of officers will hold the post of SP. For example, if it is a very big district, for example, if you take the example of Cyberabad, so there the IG level officer is, the commissioner of police there. Now commissioner of police is equivalent to a superintendent in nominal terms, because superintendent is the head of a district, commissioner is the head of a commissionerate. Now it's been made a commissionerate because it is a big city with a lot of multiple issues, and a district is a smaller one. So commissioner is like a very senior version of a superintendent of police. So, and there are other districts, for example Warangal, which is also very big but not as big as Cyberabad. So there a DIG level officer is the SP right now. So these things keep happening. Generally after SP you will have DIG, and then you have the IG, Inspector General, so Deputy Inspector General, then Inspector General, and then ADG, and after that the final DG. So currently our DG is Mr. Mahinder Reddy. Now that DGP becomes the senior most position in a district. So that is how the service works. So as I told you guys about all these different kinds of postings and the different job profiles, you have to understand that even when you're preparing, your socializing really reduces a lot, and even when you come to NPA, it is all very physical and kind of isolating. So you have to keep your people skills alive, because when you come onto the field, you have to understand how to deal with the people, how to listen to them. Listening is the most important skill. Sometimes you don't need to talk if you listen properly. It is that effective. So you need to understand how to handle your emotions, because if you just believe what the other person is saying and start reacting to it, that will not probably make you a good officer. You have to listen to both sides of the stories, have patience to listen to both sides of the stories, and then respond, because each and every action of yours will make a very big difference, because you are in that position of power. So your actions will have a lot of implications. So you have to try your best to keep your emotions in check, listen to the people, and respond properly. So this is something which you should always keep in mind, even after preparation.